I'm Dr. Troy Spurrill, and our podcast is Synapse Snips. Our podcast teaches people about how the body is supposed to work, basically how we were innately made. Have you ever wondered why you get headaches? Ever wondered why you wake up and your feet don't work in the morning and they're achy, and then as you get walking, it gets better? Have you ever wondered why you don't remember your dreams? Have you ever wondered why you're gaining weight even though you're eating right, you're exercising, and the weight keeps coming on? Have you ever wondered why you're just feeling depressed? That's hard to get up off the couch. If you ever wondered about why you feel these things and why you're not just feeling right, listen to our podcast to get the answers. We get to the root cause and we tell you why. Make sure you're listening to Synapse Snips each and every week where we answer the questions that you guys have. Also, you can find us at officialsynapse.com. That's official Synapse, SYNAPSE.
Welcome to Synapse Snips. I'm Dr. Troy Spurrill with Dr. Josh Wallert and Marque Gant, and we are here today to talk about whole food and why it matters. So let's start with what is whole food and why does it matter?
Yeah, it's all the stuff on the outside of the grocery store.
Yeah.
The perimeter, not the inside aisles where all the the bags of stuff is. So some people don't know that the outside exists.
Yes, and they need to.
Yeah, that's the whole food stuff, the stuff that looks like it grew on a tree.
Yeah, and with whole food, you get a lot of the ingredients within that food actually working synergistically. So a lot of things will have a lot of different good antioxidants, and you can gain benefit by extracting like little active parts of it. But you also, from a foundational perspective, have to have the entirety of the whole fruit or vegetable or whole food there to actually have it really affect the majority of your cells just from your entire body perspective.
Yeah, regardless of the kind of processing that a food undergoes, you're going to lose that nutrition to some degree. You actually lose nutrition after it's picked. So ideally,
Absolutely.
in the garden, but even if it's cut up, heated, processed, ground up to put in some good organic, packaged food, it's still not going to be the same.
Yeah, if you could have your garden right outside your kitchen, vine ripened food, you pick it, you eat it, that would save you hundreds of dollars a month or over months in supplements and all these other things just from the pure nutrient value, getting that fresh from the farm to the table food. And you hit on something really important there, the word process. People know they're supposed to avoid processed food, but they don't know what that means.
Yeah.
And so whole food is not processed, or when they pick it, that's a process. And if they spray something on it, that's starting another process. So processed food is really as they get a food, a whole food, and then they slowly change it into what they ultimately deliver it to you. And we have a saying here, if God made it, it's good. If man changed it, just beware. And processing is all man-made. I'll say that part.
Yeah. There's a term even ultra-processed.
Yeah.
So like the Wonder Bread, white bread, you can barely discern what what the original food was.
Yeah. Well, and the more you process something, the more you're adding chemicals, number one, that don't really serve our body. And if our body can't recognize that chemical, it is now technically a toxin to your body. It's now technically an invading something to your body. So just like a virus, a bacteria, a parasite, or an environmental toxin, your body will treat it like it's an infection and try and get rid of it. So it is extra work for your immune system. So again, if you just want to have a more empowered, healthier immune system, eat whole food.
Yeah. Gluten is a good example of this. We have, I know both of us have had patients, and I have a family member too. If they go to a different country where the wheat is processed differently, they can eat it fine and tolerate it. A lot of the problem with gluten, and it's susceptible. I mean, some people have trouble with just gluten no matter what. But some people have trouble because of the wheat processing that we do in the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the majority do. And so part of what people always ask me, what would you do to actually help the healthcare system? The first place I'd start is our food.
Yeah.
That would be the first place I start. So when it comes to the processing too, the more you process something, the more you refine something, the stronger it gets. So we've used this on past podcasts, but the example of the poppy seed, and the poppy seed coming from the flower gets processed and it becomes opium. And then you process the opium and it becomes heroin. And then you further refine and process the heroin and it becomes morphine. And so we see that Oh wait, maybe I got the morphine and the heroin wrong.
I don't remember.
Yeah, but I got one of those backwards. But you get the point.
Yeah.
It gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and this is basically what we're doing to our food supply. So when you take sugar in its whole cane form and you start to process it down into a smaller, simpler sugar, it literally gets into your cells that much faster and easier, causing that much more havoc, if you will, because it doesn't happen just slowly over time. It happens very, very quickly. And we call that just a spike in your glycemic index. So the blood sugar rises quickly, your body overreacts, and it drops really quickly. And that is the roller coaster of the sugar cravings that most people go through. So when you eat whole foods, perfect example of how healthy they are compared to like a Snickers bar is you don't get that sugar spike because the sugars that are in fruits and vegetables are bound or stuck to the fiber. So as that food gets into your system, it's still stuck on the fiber, just like a leaf on a branch. And as it kind of goes through the entirety of the digestive system, it slowly releases all that sugar, and it's not as small as the refined sugar, so it sits there for a little bit, feeds the good bacteria, and then gets absorbed into the bloodstream. Such a beautiful picture. I feel like I'm playing the piano when I talk about how God designed us versus yeah, sweet music. I've never heard you guys say my voice sounds like sweet music. But it's such a beautiful design compared to what we've done, where it's like, here, have a Snickers bar. Oh, you're feeling low, have another Snickers bar. Yeah. It's just backwards.
Yeah, there's a piece of advice: never eat your carbohydrates alone. It's the same idea where the blood sugar spike of even sometimes natural food, but most people can get away with an apple.
Yes,
it's the apple juice or the apple sauce, that becomes a problem. But it's the same thing. If you eat, especially refined carbohydrates alone, you're just setting yourself up for decades of problems.
But that's a perfect example. Apple is a whole food. Apple juice is processed. Apple sauce is processed. It still can have some value to you, but it is it's a process to get the juice out of there. It's a process to get the sauce out of there. Now, along with whole foods is organic whole foods versus non-organic. And we've said this many times in the past, but they should call organic food just food, and all other food should be chemical-laden food.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so processing can be as simple as just extracting and making a juice out of a whole fruit, or complex, like we're going to put all these chemicals mixed in with it to actually improve the shelf life, or to just take it through a machine that the machine has like these chemicals to help the machine run that end up getting into the food supply. Yeah. People don't really think about that part of it, but you'll be shocked at what they actually find in food that's been heavily processed.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to go back to the fruit juice thing quick, because this is something that I hear a lot. People think that because it's fruit juice and not soda pop or something like that it's automatically healthier.
Yeah.
Go and look at the sugar content between those two.
Yeah.
It's the same.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, not only is it the same, but your body actually handles glucose better than fructose.
Yeah, fructose, yeah.
Fructose has got a much lesser capacity, so the liver gets overwhelmed, and it takes a lot less fruit juice to cause damage to the liver than it does glucose. Yeah. So you can get away with like straight up sugar almost 2 or 3 times as much as you can fructose.
Yeah.
That's why high fructose corn syrup is so bad, though, for you.
Yeah, fruit juice is a kind of a marketing problem. People think it's a healthy alternative, and it's really, like you said, hard on the liver.
Yeah.
Very hard on it.
Yeah. So one of the things that we kind of wanted to touch base on there was when it comes to processed food, what are some of just your worst examples of processed food for people to avoid? It would be on the inner aisles of the grocery store. But what are some of the bad ones? And then I just want to make one comment on some of the stuff that's found. If you ever look up what's found in food that's heavily processed, probably the most disgusting thing you're going to find is just the mouse and rat turds that are in there.
Yeah.
So there's evidence of that. And that's just the animals that are crawling on the equipment. Never mind the grease and the chemicals that are used to run the equipment, and just how that gets put up into the air and the environment.
Yes.
So just know that a lot of that stuff exists. But what for you are some of the worst examples of processed food that you have to really, talk people off the cliff?
Yeah, well, the fruit juice is one. I think the idea that anything gluten-free is healthier.
Yes,
like
good one.
Processed gluten-free foods is still processed, even if there's not gluten in it. So people will say, well, I'm not eating gluten anymore, but I still have my gluten-free donut and my gluten-free cereal and my gluten-free cake for, for all this stuff. That's not any better. Yeah. And people think because it's gluten-free that it's on this higher tier of health, and that's not true. The processing there is still just as bad.
Yeah, arsenic is gluten-free.
Yeah. It tastes sweet, I think, too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Well, do you know? So this is he's never tasted arsenic. This is a side topic, but one of my patients is going through some cancer assessments, and they had cancer in the past, and their cancer treatment they had in the past has now been replaced by arsenic. They're using arsenic now to treat her type of cancer. And she asked the oncologist why, and she said because the arsenic is less damaging to your to your body. And so she's like, well, how damaging was what I went through before for my cancer treatment? So
those treatments are basically hope the cancer dies before the treatment. Kills you.
It's basically dropping a bomb on the field of action, if you will, and hoping that you get more of the enemy than the good guys.
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot about. Fruits and vegetables. We should talk about meat too. Meat processing.
Yep.
Yeah. So, in particular, in the United States, we demonize red meat, and I think a lot of that has to do with both the processing that we do with the meat, but also what we eat in conjunction with it. Most people who eat red meat as a normal food, they're going to also be having beer, and they're going to have sweets afterwards. And so it's, there's a lot of research from other countries that don't have our bad habits that eating red meat's fine.
Yes.
But the meat processing in particular, and this goes back to the organic part too, even starting from the cow and what the cow ate and what we did to the cow is kind of a processing
exactly where I was going to go. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and beyond that even too, after the fact, the amount of time that the meat sits, sausages in particular have a lot of junk in them that a nice cut of beef is not going to have.
Yep. Yeah, and what is put into that animal is very important. We even know too that animals that have different levels of stress, how they perceive stress, will influence the quality of the meat itself. So that's very important. And then one of my patients asked, they're on a program and they're running through their program, and at one point we've asked them to pull out pork, and they're wondering why pull out pork, and part of the answer and part of the conversation was, have you seen what pigs eat? And I mean, if you threw a license plate into the slop there, they would eat the license plate. They're not that discerning. So a lot of pork again can be good for you, but what that animal eats is crucial to actually how much of that you can have.
And that problem goes back to the farming practices more than anything, because farmers know that the pigs will eat essentially anything. They let them eat essentially anything.
Yeah, and a lot of it, again, boils down to just some business stuff that needs to be tweaked and stuff, but like you get paid based on the size of the pig, not the health or quality of the pig. You get paid on how much milk is there. So I know there are some farmers with not the best amount of integrity who will allow for infected udders to occur because the pus from the infection increases their volume of milk output that they can sell. And you basically get paid based on the actual volume of milk, not based on the quality again, unless there's going through some filtering process of under an organic where you have to pass certain levels. And those farmers do get fined and stuff if they get caught, but
it's hard for them to get caught. This was, there's a decent transparency, I say decent, on some nutritional labeling. Because you can put non-GMO and there's problems with everything, but there's not a lot of transparency on what actually is allowed to be done to animals that can slip through some of these. Because if you get something, especially if it doesn't say organic, non-GMO, you have no idea what that animal ate. You have no idea what happened to that food before it got processed and came to you.
So a lot of our conversations about how to get people healthier and how to clean up their own body is starting with their diet and lifestyle and cleaning up the food that they're actually eating. So it's crucial, number one, that we start with whole foods, whole fruit, whole vegetables. And I want to say this too. Some people try right away to increase their raw fruit and vegetables, and they can't tolerate it. If you can't tolerate vegetables, it means that you have an irritable bowel of some sort or inflammatory bowel of some sort. And the fiber that's in those fruits and vegetables is kind of like its job is to rub up against the walls of the intestines and massage the inside of the walls, so to speak, and which is great. But that's kind of like you going out and getting a massage when you have a bad sunburn. It doesn't feel so good. So that's why you can't tolerate the raw fruits and vegetables. So start with whole foods, but cook them and keep them whole. And it's okay to cut them up and prepare them for a meal. And then ease into that and get into the more of the raw foods later. And then try to avoid the heavily processed foods. The big ones are things like chips, like especially like that just don't have much nutrient value at all, like nothing. Doritos and all these flavor things. Food chemists are hired by companies to make you addicted to their food, become addicted to their food. And so that's their job. So someone who's really good at it will spend a year or years in a lab trying to create a chemical that tricks your brain into thinking the food is really, really tasty. Really good. Yeah. And that's a problem, because if you eat a food that has no nutrient value, what have you done? You've added those chemicals into your body. They create an inflammatory response, which is now your immune system has to handle that. And your cells are still saying the signal of, I'm hungry, feed me, because they're not getting the nutrients into the cells. Plus, if your cells are inflamed, what happens? The surface area of the cells literally fold up over each other, blocking the receptors so the nutrients can't get in. So you've not only not gotten the nutrients, you're now blocking the ability to get nutrients in if you eat something healthy. So when you combine an apple with Doritos, you're actually reducing the impact of that apple. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I love apples and Doritos together.
I just blew Josh's late night snack.
Man, I haven't had a Dorito in like 15 years.
Yeah, I know. That's why it's really important, because some people will say, well, I'm doing really well. I'm eating an orange. Yeah. I'm like, okay. And, wow, yeah, I have a Red Bull and I've got some Doritos and I had some Cheetos. Yeah. You know, but I never had oranges before. I know those are healthy. I'm like, yeah, you took a cup of water to try and put out a forest fire. Like, come on, dude.
It's a baby step.
It's a baby step. Yeah, I encourage them. As I'm saying, that's really pathetic. I'm encouraging them still.
Yeah, exactly.
But I want to speak life into it. So everyone who's just eating an orange with all the Doritos and stuff, keep going.
just add more oranges and fewer Doritos.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. People, I think, assume that food manufacturers have their best interests in mind, or the government or whatever it is, and say, well, they're not going to sell me something that's going to be, that's going to harm me.
Yeah.
Well, that's unfortunately just not true.
It's not true. And I'll throw out a positive with that. So we call that being gullible, but gullibility comes from being trusting in excess. So it means the majority of people who are gullible is because they have good hearts who are very trusting, but they're overly trusting and overly trusting. That's what makes them gullible. Yeah. So it's usually good people. So we want all those good people to stop being fooled and trusting people that don't necessarily have their best interests at heart.
One of the best things to learn how to do, one, like we said, is to shop on the perimeter, right, with the whole foods. And even if you're going to buy something packaged, learn to read ingredients, ingredient lists. You go through there and say, I don't know how to pronounce that word. That seems strange. Or it says, well, what is, these artificial ingredients, what is it that's in that? Yeah. If you can't pronounce it and you don't feel comfortable with the ingredients, and if the list of ingredients is a mile long, for a food, that's not going to.
I have a cutoff of 5. I will not get anything that's over 5 unless it's like all whole foods, like it's a mixed nuts that have 5 or 6 different nuts and salt or something like that. Like,
is that 6th nut really?
This is no good. No good. Can't buy this. Yep. So that's a very good rule. If it has a huge ingredients list, that's a chemist that put that together, not anyone else. Yeah. Good stuff. Mm-hmm. Anything else as a final message?
Yeah. Can we talk about water as whole food? It's not really food.
Yeah.
But I think drinking water is underrated. A lot of people drink even sparkling water or some of these other things.
Yep.
Just get in the habit of drinking good water.
Yes.
Like normal water, nothing that has the flavorings in there. It's the same idea with food.
Yep, exactly. And I'm going to add clean water.
Clean water.
Because unfortunately, tap water these days isn't really working for you.
Yeah, if you want I should almost not say this, but I'm going to. The Environmental Working Group has a tap water database.
Yes.
And if you've never gone there and typed in your zip code and found your tap water, it'll tell you all the chemicals in there. And it's interesting, too, because it'll tell you all the chemicals, and it'll give you both a government-recommended cutoff, if there is one, and their own health guideline for the Environmental Working Group. Those obviously are not in conjunction with each other, the government guidelines and the health guidelines. But there are most tap waters that are going to have 5, 6, 7 chemicals in the water, known in the water, that are just there, not to mention all the things that haven't been tested.
Yep.
And so if you're drinking straight tap water, again, it's kind of the trust. The goal of the tap water is to make sure that you don't get E. coli.
Yes.
Essentially, they are not testing and pulling out chemicals.
No, none of the other stuff. It's really just the stuff that could kill you within the next 24 hours that they're trying to test for. And then the Environmental Working Group does a better job of saying, well, these could be more harmful. And then the third layer of that is there are people, could be 5%, 10% of the population, that just can't have the capacity of getting rid of one thing. Yeah. So 4 people in the household could be fine, and the 5th person could not tolerate that water because there's just a little bit extra chemical of some sort, and that's their own personal capacity.
That same website, then, if you scroll down further after all the chemicals, it'll tell you what type of filter does a good job of clearing out those specific ones.
Love that website.
That's nice. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, great note to end it on. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in on this episode of Synapse Snips. We'll be back soon to discuss more.